The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Good morning and welcome to our extended DISC webinar. Today's 30-minute webinar topic is maximizing your DISC style to set and achieve your goals. Just a couple kind of points to make before we start. It's a 30-minute webinar. We are going to record this, so if you need to leave or you miss any or you'd like to share it, it will be posted on our website in the next day or so. As usual, this webinar is packed with information, and so it's just easier for us to ask you to put your questions in the question section, and after the webinar has finished, we will follow up and answer any questions that have come up. We do encourage your questions. So welcome. My name is Christina, and I am a senior trainer here at Extended DISC. Joining me today is my guest, Markku Kauppinen, President of Extended DISC North America. Welcome, Markku.
Thank you, Christina. That's a difficult name, isn't it?
Yeah, even though I've known it for more than 5 years. So today, we are just overwhelmed with the response for this webinar. And it's obviously a topic that we are all thinking about at this time of year. So, are we talking specifically today about goal setting techniques?
No, the topic will not be about how to set those goals. What are those specific techniques you should use? And there's a lot of books and other resources around that topic. What I really want to talk about today is how our DISC style can really help us in the process. Make sure that we have that self-awareness in not only in setting those goals, but more importantly, doing the hard work of achieving those goals. My view has always been that when I look at successful people, whatever fields they are, whatever part of the world they are, they're always very confidently self-aware. So what we're going to look at is how our behavioral style will impact our goal setting process and achieving those goals. One important thing is to remember is that no matter what your behavioral style is, it doesn't make you better or worse. It makes you simply different. And once you understand who you are, it will help in setting the goals and, like I said, achieving them.
Okay. So
when we're looking at the DISC and the behavioral style, really, we always focus on the question how, because what the DISC really helps us understand is that, for example, how do we sell, how do we communicate, how do we motivate others? But it also has an impact on how we set goals and how do we achieve them. So those are the two things we're going to be focusing on today. And again, the big picture here is that once you have that confident self-awareness of who you are, and then you understand its impact on goal setting and achieving the goals, you will become more successful.
So it sounds like, Markku, what we're going to be talking about today is how not only does our DISC style impact how we establish or make goals, but also how we achieve those goals. But before we get into that, I want to ask Markku just to kind of, give a little overview about DISC. I mean, the basic understanding is that you have at least kind of a working knowledge of DISC, but it's always good to get a quick refresher.
Yeah, let's do a minute or two on the different DISC styles, so people who may not be familiar with it or maybe have forgotten about it has a better understanding how their DISC style will impact in the goal setting process. So the DISC styles are those very direct results oriented, very strong-willed individuals. They want results right now, and they are very independent about how they go about it. So when I think about the DISC style, I always think the Frank Sinatra song that which is really the motto of the DISC style. I did it my way.
There you go.
I styles, those are the life of the party. They're very talkative, very social, enthusiastic. They love to be around people, and for them, it's important that people like them and they can get that spotlight. So I think their motto is, I'm a nice person. Everybody should like me. And then, of course, they are fun to be around because they are so focused on everybody else and how to make things fun. S styles, they are much more laid back. They also like to be around people, but they like to be around familiar people. Mm-hmm. They're coworkers, family, friends, more steady, very pleasant, great listeners. But they like stability. They like things to be predictable. So their motto is that if it's not broken, let's not fix it.
It's working.
That's working. So why spend any effort changing it? And then finally, we have the most analytical of the styles, the C styles, who tend to be focused on details, figures, numbers. They want to do things correctly, and they really hate it when things don't go as planned. Their motto would be that, hey, if we don't have time to do it right the first time, do we have time to do it over again?
Well, thank you for that kind of quick overview. I would suggest if you'd like a even kind of a longer overview of DISC styles, you're welcome to go and listen in. We've done webinars, we have blogs, we have information on our public website, extendeddisc.org. So thanks for the 2-minute overview.
Sure, you're welcome.
So let's go ahead and talk about the DISC styles and kind of what are the challenges they have when it comes to goal setting.
So when we look at goal setting here, I'm going to focus on a couple of topics when it comes to different DISC styles. And if you have awareness of course, you need to understand who you are. But once you understand who you are in terms of your DISC style, if you keep these couple of things in mind, I think it will help you tremendously. So for example, when we start with the D styles, because they are very ambitious and they want to achieve big things, in their goal setting, sometimes they become a little bit too ambitious. They really believe that they're going to achieve these lofty goals, and they become too high, too demanding. Initially, they are very committed and they know they're going to achieve them, but they realize when they have to put that daily hard work in that, maybe this is not achievable. So if they don't get the results right away, they sometimes give up on them.
Yeah, sometimes I say for that D style, they want to get from point A to point B, B being the goal, right? But sometimes they forget the work that has to go in between point A and point B.
And they're not as detail-oriented. They're very big picture individuals, and they may not take the time to analyze what's actually required to achieve those goals. And second is that their sort of perspective of looking at things is more short-term. Mm-hmm. If they don't see those immediate results, again, they may either set a completely different goal or just change direction somehow. Mm-hmm. And having that long-term commitment sometimes is challenging for them. So persistence is something that they lack in making sure that they achieve those longer-term goals.
Yeah, so it sounds like, for that D style, maybe ahead of time, you have to invest some work, you have to invest some time, and, setting long-term goals will be more of a challenge for someone with your DISC style.
Yeah, if you're a D style, then you're going to have to really think about daily that, okay, what's the big picture here? I know that, but what are the specific details that I need to make sure that I understand and execute every day?
Yeah, it's just kind of owning it about your own style. So let's talk about the I style.
I styles, well, they love goal setting. I know many I styles, and some of them set new goals almost every day.
It's fun.
It is a lot of fun because what they can do is, and they are very likely to do, is that they visualize what it's like what things are like when they achieve those goals. They can see them already there. Mm-hmm. And of course, that's a lot of fun, but sometimes they're a little bit too optimistic in setting those goals. They truly believe that's going to happen.
Right.
But they do not sometimes take the time to realize the hard work that goes in. A little bit different reason than for the D style. D style is just they're so results driven. I styles are more fun driven, and they can see all the fun things that are going to happen when they achieve those goals.
And they're much more kind of impulsive and emotional when they're making these types of goals, right? I mean, when you make a goal like, you're going to run a race, they might already see themselves at the finish line on the podium with a medal.
That's right. And boy, that's a lot of fun. And yeah. Have a picture in the papers and all that thing. So that's so fun for them. And for them, one of the biggest challenges is the follow through. Mm-hmm. They really need to keep in mind and consistently focus on breaking down to daily behaviors. It's important for anybody, but for iStyle, it's very critical. And also make sure that you are not switching those goals too often. Maybe today you're interested in running, but a week later you want to do something else. Follow through is very important for eyes.
Okay, to be consciously aware of that, I understand. So how about that S style?
Well, S style, what we like about S styles is that they're kind of laid back. And when it comes to things, sometimes they're a little bit too modest in their goal setting. Not because they don't want to be successful, but often they tend to become a little overwhelmed about what needs to be done to get there. And they might overestimate the amount of work that is involved in achieving the goal. So they're too modest in that. And since they also really like to have a step-by-step plan, because they want to know how am I going to get there, the steps, 1, 2, 3, 4, and so on, sometimes they spend too much effort and time in that planning process. So they essentially kind of planning to get ready. So for the I styles, I use the Nike slogan all the time, just do it and get started. And then once the S style gets started, they're unstoppable. The D style is that sports car that goes from 0 to 60 in a few seconds. S style is more of a train leaving a station, a little bit slow to accelerate, but once they are moving, they're unstoppable.
So what I'm hearing about that S style is sometimes just be aware that you might be setting goals that may be not quite as challenging to you. So be aware of that, and then also just do it.
That's right. And they might be a little bit cautious and, like I said, too modest. Not, again, I don't want to imply in any means that SS styles cannot be successful, but in goal setting, sometimes may a little bit more aggressive.
Okay, sounds good. How about that C style?
Well, C styles, we mentioned that they're very detail-oriented. They're very analytical. They want to have a clear, detailed plan how they're going to achieve the goals. The goal setting, sometimes they become a little bit too analytical. They begin to have those Excel worksheets for every day, specific goals, etc. They need that, but sometimes they focus too much on those very specific numbers instead of stepping back and looking at what I'm actually trying to achieve here. Mm-hmm. So let's say a lot of people at this time of year, they set fitness goals. So maybe C style decides to start running. Well, they have a worksheet, every day I'm going to run a certain amount, and they might look at weather conditions and all those kind of things that may be needed but important, but maybe they go for a run today and the Excel worksheet says, hey, I need to run 5.5 miles. And for whatever reason, they may only run 5. Sometimes they focus on that half of my quotation mark failure more than celebrating that, hey, I ran 5 miles today. Now, D style, no problem there. Like you mentioned, marathon, they're going to think they're going to run marathon 2 months from now without looking back and realizing that last year they ran a combined amount of 10 miles.
Yeah. So it sounds like for that C style, sometimes it's, we sometimes need to be aware to focus more on our daily successes, or I'm sorry, the kind of the overall success versus fixating on our daily success or our failures in that case.
Yeah, sometimes when they're looking at when things are not going to according to plan, they may forget that even if I'm not quite where I need to be today, or just today I did not do what I was supposed to do, it's not as a big of a thing, because I can always make up for it later, and I can keep that big picture focus. That will be very helpful for C style. So if you are C style, kind of step back, take a breather, and celebrate your successes more than focusing on the little failures that really, honestly, nobody else even notices.
Yeah, can drag you down too, personally. But so, I think many of us, we set goals, and by about this point in time, we've probably given it up. So I think those are some helpful kind of self-awareness tips that Markku that talked about.
I think one of the reasons people like to make New Year's resolutions, it's fun to imagine what it's going to look like, and when you get there, and things you can achieve, and how happier and life is better, those kind of things. But I think also one reason they are popular is that it kind of gives us permission to forgive our shortcomings the previous year. And no matter what your style is, I think if you really understand that sometimes you will have some setbacks, maybe you need to adjust those goals, because maybe you are the D style who's had a little bit too ambitious of a goal. Making those adjustments and not being quite as hard on yourself can also be important to remember. But again, in goal setting, if you realize and understand what your style is, then think about how you tend to set goals that can help you to get it off to a good start. Because if the start is positive, then you're much more likely to be successful as well.
Exactly. So kind of what Markku was talking about was the start. How do we go about setting goals? But let's talk a little bit about how our DISC styles can help us in achieving goals.
All right. Now we have to do the hard work of actually make those goals a reality. So let's look at, again, from the different style points. And maybe in this case, we don't follow up on a fitness goal. Let's maybe focus on like organizational or work goals. And we can look at this topic also, not only how do I achieve the goals, but how do I help others to get that commitment to achieving those goals? So maybe we can look at it from a point of view of how as a manager, let's say I'm a sales manager, how do I help my salespeople to be successful? And with the D styles, what's important for them, because they want, I did it my way. They want to be included in that planning process, help them set goals together. They need to feel that they had a significant input in those goals. Of course, sometimes it's very possible. Other times this to a lesser degree. But if you include the D style in the process, you are off to a much better start. And what's really important is that the D style need to have a clear understanding how achieving the goal will benefit them. They need to be able to understand and visualize what it will look like when they're successful. And if we are helping others, let's say a manager, I need to understand what is important for that employee. For one person, one employee could be putting my kid through a college. For somebody else, it could be completely different. Mm-hmm. And if I don't find what that goal is, it's not going to be as easy road. And also with the D styles, you can and want to create challenging goals because they love the challenge. If you want to really get D style going, tell me. I'm trying to tell them. Show me what you can do. Oh, in the D style now, okay. Believe me, I'm going to show you.
Throwing down the gauntlet.
Yeah, but in that process, you need to provide them some independence. Mm-hmm. It really cannot be managed too closely because that will demotivate them and obviously make it more difficult for them to achieve in those goals.
Yeah, I like how you talk about that in terms of motivators and demotivators. So let's go ahead and talk about I styles, Markku. You want to lead us off?
Well, I styles, what I personally love about I styles is enthusiasm and how positive they are. And in the goal setting, sometimes that enthusiasm, as we talked about a few minutes ago, can become a little bit of a distraction because the goals become a little bit too challenging and too lofty. But more important with the I styles is that you really need to document those goals and you really need to break it down to very specific daily behaviors. I styles typically their tendency is not to plan very specifically. They kind of go with the flow and a certain situation that works fine, but let's say in organizational settings, typically you need to be more specific about how to get there. So let's say in a sales situation, if the goal is to sell, let's say 10,000 units of a product, you need to break it down to specific daily behaviors. Now, I'm a strong believer you have to do it with all styles, but for I style, it's really, really critical. So maybe one of those daily specific behaviors might be you need to make 10 cold calls a day. And you need to document that, and you need to help them to have that long-term focus that, hey, you have to make these calls every day, and you need to hold them accountable. Make sure that you track it because they are so focused on future and some other more exciting things that's easy to kind of fall behind too soon.
Yeah, or they get distracted. So, okay, with the I styles, I always, they're very positive. They're very enthusiastic when you're setting goals with them. It sounds like the key to helping them achieve their goals is to focus down onto daily behaviors, checking in.
Daily behaviors, you need to keep it positive and fun because that's what I styles like. And if you're an I style and you look at how do I achieve my goal, how do I stay committed, you need to have some kind of some kind of a process to be able to document your daily behaviors. Maybe you do have to create a worksheet for some reason, but the daily tracking of progress is important. And if you fall behind, you need to take corrective action quickly because they sometimes get a little bit discouraged because that is not a positive thing you need to talk about.
Exactly.
But then you can again focus on the future by having that accountability there.
Okay, so let's switch to the reserve side of the model. Let's talk about the S style.
All right, S styles, well, they like planning. They want to have that step-by-step direction because sometimes S styles, they are hesitant to begin because if they don't understand how you want them to get there. So you have to have a very clearly, you need to break those goals very specifically to daily behaviors as well. But one thing you need to do with S styles is that you need to also, throughout the work of achieving those goals, is to offer support and encouragement. At minimum, you need to make sure that they clearly understand that it's available. Because with S styles, while they like to be around people, they are more introverted. They like to have interactions with familiar people, but sometimes for other people, it's very difficult to read them. Mm-hmm. They might be doing great or they might not be doing so great, but outwardly they look the same. So you need to kind of check the temperature quite frequently, make sure that you have a clear understanding where they are with their progress toward those goals. And they want to achieve that how question again. Show me how you want me to get there. Mm-hmm. Because without that, they may feel uncomfortable and get a little overwhelmed. And again, if they fall behind, if you don't check the temperature frequently enough, you may never know it.
And then just kind of what it sounds like. Well, what I'm hearing is that, with an S style, they may have a tendency to be slow to start or to be overwhelmed, but because of that kind of calm demeanor, we don't know that. So it's important to, whether you're actually giving support or encouragement, to at least offer it.
Yeah, they need to feel comfortable to come to you and ask for help. But more importantly, you need to ask them how they are doing. Do you need help? Is there anything I can do? That goes a long way with the S-style employees. And like we talked about a little moment ago about the D-styles, how do you get them committed? You say, hell, show me what you can do. One way to get the S-style committed is just tell them that, hey, I'm counting on you. More importantly, our team is counting on you. S-styles do not want to let other people down. And what will happen often with the S-styles is that if they feel that they're falling back, they're not performing at the level they need to. Maybe the sales are not at the level they need to be for this month. Then pressure kind of creeps in. And with all styles, when we feel pressure and stress, we tend to revert to our natural style even more.
Right.
And it becomes more of a challenge because then the S style can feel even more overwhelmed. And sometimes that feeling of being overwhelmed can almost be paralyzing.
Yeah. And that's where, if you have established a rapport and a relationship with that S style, I think that could be beneficial.
And it really, if you're a manager in daily activities, it doesn't take much. Asking how they're doing, that takes a few seconds. But they need to have that constant reminder that I'm here to help you, because if you succeed, our organization will be successful as well.
Exactly. So check in frequently and help them establish a clear plan or course of action in goal setting. So, okay, let's talk about the C style.
Well, C style, as we talked a moment ago, is that they want to have that detailed plan. So if you are doing a plan for the next year, you cannot wait till last week of December to start that process. They want to have enough time to prepare and understand and really have that detailed plan. Now, if you're not a C style, helping in that process, of course, it requires you to get out of your comfort zone, but that's the way to get the C style employee really motivated and get them on the right path to success. One thing with the C style, they don't like to be criticized. Nobody likes to be criticized, but for C style, if they make a mistake, it's a big thing for them. I style makes a mistake, they forget about it in 30 minutes. C style will not forget about it. So if you are helping somebody to really remain committed to those goals, you need to, with the C styles, be very careful with that. Nobody likes negative feedback or criticism, whatever you want to call it. But with C styles, they will take it very personally.
Mm-hmm.
And because they are more reserved and a little bit less expressive, sometimes managers, I see this happen, they fail to realize that it was really devastating for the C style employee, and the manager never knew about it. So what I recommend is that when you are having to have those conversations that performance is not quite it should be, it's important that you focus more on the numbers and also help that C style employee to really take more of a big picture view of it. So for example, let's say that the C-style employee had to make 10 cold calls every day.
Mm-hmm.
Well, if one day they make only 9 cold calls, the C-style employee may see that as a failure. Not only did I let myself down, I let my organization down. So maybe you focus, hey, let's look at the fact that you can make 11 calls tomorrow. You can make 13 calls tomorrow. Let's look at the more of a big perspective, what's happening here, and make sure we focus on the positive things a little bit more. Of course, sometimes somebody really falls behind and need to be more direct and demanding, but typically a C-style employee can fall back in their perspective a little bit too easily because they focus so much on those daily failures instead of the big picture successes.
So what I'm hearing is that, criticism really is the biggest fear of the C style. They want to do things correctly.
And they're very hard on themselves. Some people say that C styles are critical of others. Believe me, C styles are the hardest on themselves.
Yeah,
they're very hard on themselves.
So today, as much as we would love to keep talking on and on, just what we talked about as an intro is just how DISC styles affect everything we do and all our behaviors. But we can also utilize DISC styles in helping us to set goals and also in helping us to achieve goals.
That's right. I mean, and we really cannot escape DISC style. It shows up in everything we do. And again, like you started this webinar, is that how you really use DISCs effectively is that you create that what I call a confident self-awareness. Once you understand what your strengths and development areas are, you can begin to make very specific and very conscious decisions about how do I need to proceed, how do I need to communicate with a coworker, how do I need to lead, etc. And if you keep that awareness, your confident self-awareness throughout the process of goal setting, you think about what are my tendencies to make goals. Maybe they are too ambitious or maybe they're too optimistic, whatever they are. That will help you in setting those goals. And then when you actually do the hard work of achieving the goals, you can always keep in mind what your style is, because that will help in the process. So it's all about self-awareness and then making right decisions to modify our behavior.
Thank you for joining us today, Markku.
Thank you.
And I just want to say we've gotten so many questions. Again, we aren't answering them live, just in respect of everyone's time. We have recorded this webinar, and we will be making it available on our website within the next day or so. So feel free to revisit it or share it with your counterparts. I also want to mention that, again, on our DISC website, our extended DISC website, we have other recorded webinars, we have blogs, we have training videos, we have a lot of information that can support you in delivering your own DISC workshops. Last but not least, I want to mention that we have a webinar coming up next week, January 31st. If you missed our first one on what is the difference between extended DISC versus other DISC, we get asked that question. It's probably the most frequently asked question, wouldn't you say?
I've been asked that 2 times already today.
Yeah, there you go. So, and as trainers, I guarantee you will get asked that question as well. So if you need to understand more, join us. Our webinar is next Wednesday at 10 a.m. Central Time. It's another 30-minute. So again, thanks, Markku.
Thank you.
And we will be in touch soon. Take care.